and welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Today's video going to be a review of Celtic against Hibs yesterday afternoon. An extremely disappointing 0-0 draw. Going to try and look to see where I think Celtic failed, where Hibs did well, and how Celtic can sort these problems out. And I think some of the blame needs to go to the players and some of the blame needs to go to Brendan Rodgers. It was very clear the game against Atletico Madrid took a lot of energy out mentally and physically from the players. At the end of the match, Dyson Maida looked absolutely knackered. And for him, that's very unusual, but we have to remember he's coming back from injury. And it was a little surprising that Dyson Maida wasn't quite the usual player up and down the wing, covering back to help defence, coming into midfield, trying to get into the box. He looked just off the pace, physically and mentally. Kyogo was pretty anonymous for me. There were some nice flashes from O'Reilly and Palmer. Callum McGregor didn't really have his best match. Paulo Bernardo also was rather anonymous. The back four did a super duper job. Joe Hart, finding goals, didn't really have much to do with in terms of stopping shots. Thought the defence were nice and strong. However, we seem to really lack energy, ideas, pace, tempo from midfield out wide, and with Kyogo up front. And I think, for me personally, a lot of that blame does have to go to Brendan Rodgers. I think this was a perfect chance to give a couple of our players who played week in, week out, such as Kyogo, Maida, O'Reilly, a bit of a rest. And I do note that Rodgers was sort of having a cryptic message that he's disappointed with his bench and the players he can bring on. I don't think there's any real possibility of players such as Yang, O, Iwata, Holm, Tillio ever getting used to playing in Scottish football unless they get a chance to play in Scottish football. Holm and Yang have all showed good style and good ability in flashes. Yang has a lot of pace. Holm has the ability to come through from midfield into the attack and track back to help in defence. Tillio, from all the videos and scouting reels and footage from his time in Australia, very quick player, great ability driving into the box, good ability getting out wide and crossing in, and has a real ability to score goals. Yang also has a good record of scoring goals for a wide player. And under Postecoglou, did get several starts, giving Kyogo a rest. And in his two games against Hibs in his career, had scored on both occasions. I think this was a perfect chance to maybe start up front, give Yang the start on the right, resting Kyogo and Maida, probably bringing in both of those two players on after 60 minutes if Celtic need a bit of energy and better skill. Would also have been a good idea, personally, I think, to have started Iwata, push McGregor, and up further into more the Hatate role, as I think Bernardo really wasn't able to replicate the Hatate role of being a box-to-box midfielder. Iwata, in his brief appearance at Hearts, looked great, real ability to be box-to-box, but also I think that would have allowed McGregor to be further up the pitch, more creative, and McGregor has a special ability to split defences, spread the ball out wide, and I think there was too much pressure put on Paulo Bernardo. I do hope that Celtic do look on Wednesday just to freshen things up a bit, and bring on, give a couple of the bench players a start. I really don't see the sense of throwing on Mikey Johnston and David Turnbull. David Turnbull, perfectly good player, but Celtic don't seem to be making any efforts to extend his contract. Seem quite happy to let him negotiate a deal somewhere else in the January transfer window. And so I can't really see the sense of playing Turnbull rather than Iwata or Home. Iwata was on the bench. Iwata played well against Hearts when he came on, scored a great goal and looked very full of energy and drive, the things that Celtic lost on yesterday. It's all well and good, Brendan Rodgers talking about Celtic lacking pace and tempo and energy, etc., and it not really coming on until he brought on his substitutes. For me, you start the game with fresh players, and if needed, you can bring on your Kyogos, your Rileys, your Maidas, when if things are not going so well, and then they can have a shorter spell, more concentrated energy to change the match. This was a very atypical performance for Celtic. I don't see the team under Ange Postecoglou being so lacking in energy, drive, and tempo. Postecoglou's teams always played from start to finish, like high pace, never seemed to tire, and pulled the games out the fire at the end with lots of last minute or late equalisers and winners, such as the game against Dundee United, where we scored 2 goals in added time to win a game that would otherwise have been a disappointing draw. Mikey Johnston, James Forrest have been at Celtic for absolutely ages. They've been at Celtic since they were children. It's 19 months since Mikey Johnston made a start for Celtic. Now, admittedly, some of that's been he's been out injured. Some of that was he was on loan in Portugal, but there's a good reason for the fact that Postecoglou sent him out to play in Portugal on loan. He just isn't really good enough to play for Celtic. One or two wee flashes. When he did come on as a sub, to get a nice shot off that was pretty easy to save by Marshall, but really wasn't linking up with his teammates, lost the ball rather often. Turnbull, pretty anonymous for me as well. One little dinky shot very late in the match, didn't really drive into the box, didn't really get the team going. James Forrest, plenty of energy, plenty of drive, but I don't really think James Forrest now is the player we want as the spare man breaking into box. He missed pretty much an easy chance, whacking the ball onto the bar when an easy controlled side foot shot would have scored the goal. Similarly, getting to the front post late in the game, rather ineffectual shot. Much better if that chance was going to a player with real finishing ability, such as Palma or O. Instead, a wide player coming in, such as Forrest, not really used to playing an inside forward role. Primarily has played wide for Celtic and done a really good job when he was younger for Celtic. I don't think Johnston, Turnbull, or Forrest really have a long-term future at Celtic. They are all players, no doubt, that Brendan Rodgers knows from before and maybe trusts them more, but I think it is time for Iwata, Home, Yang, etc. to get their chance. Home is an under-21 international for Norway. Yang and O are both internationals in the full South Korean squad. Klinsmann recently singled out O for great praise, thinking that he could turn into a world-class forward for South Korea, comparing him to the South Korean captain Son, who has been one of the leaders at the revitalisation of Spurs this season in the English Premier League under Postecoglou. And so I do think it's time those players get a chance. All those players have nice long-term contracts at Celtic. Forrest, Johnston, Turnbull are players I think that Celtic should be looking to move out, particularly Turnbull and Johnston. I think Forrest, good player to have in the background, really experienced player, a good player to maybe bring Palma, Yang, Tilio, etc. forward. Also a good player to maybe mentor Rocco Vata, who I think is a very promising young player, doing very well for Republic of Ireland under-21s and Celtic's B team. I think all these players should be getting into the first team squad, getting regular games off the bench and occasional starts, particularly when the first choice 11 are rather tired physically and mentally after a series of high intensity games against Hearts and then Madrid and then against Hibs, following for many of them international games, also high pressure, high energy. I think players like Kyogo, Maeda, etc. do need a rest from time to time. And yesterday's game was a perfect opportunity, and the game against St Mirren would also be an excellent opportunity, not to rest the whole team, but maybe just rest a couple and give the fit, fresh players a go, with the more established stars as backups to come on. Ange Postecoglou was never scared to rotate his team, as was also the case with other great Celtic recent managers, such as Martin O'Neill and Gordon Strachan. They had their basic starting 11, but were very able to bring in players just to give players such as Sutton and Hearts and Agat and various others the odd game to rest and come off the bench as impact players. Now, many people may think that Brendan Rodgers got things absolutely right, but I don't really think in your post-match comments you should be saying, "Oh, we didn't really play with any tempo and pace and energy, etc." Well, that's because the players were tired physically and mentally at the start of the match, and it would have been better to have played players who were fresh physically and mentally. Also, a couple of players who've got things to prove. Would have been a perfect opportunity to come at Hibs quickly, hit them with pace and aggression and energy, and get on top of them, which then would have stopped Hibs being able to play their banks of four, killing the ball, killing the space, and meaning Celtic didn't really have the opportunity to properly break through, especially because all our players basically were under par for one reason or another. Quite interesting also reading some comments in the press that Diego Simeone was massively impressed with Luis Palma in the game on Wednesday. I thought Palma had a great game against Madrid, has played very well against Hearts and Lazio and Kilmarnock before that. I think he is the kind of player, a wee bit like Jota maybe, where he may not do terribly much for 60 minutes and then suddenly a couple of great runs, great shot, great pass, lovely long shot or breaking into the box for a quick, clever finish are all things that Luis Palma and Jota shared. Jota sometimes would be fairly anonymous and then suddenly break into life and score a goal or create a chance for another player. Rodgers seems incredibly keen to take him off after 60 minutes and throw on James Forrest. And I don't think that's either going to help Palma fit into this team. I think he is going to be a great player for Celtic. And I think he needs to get a chance to play on a really regular basis, 90 minutes, as he is a player who's always liable, as was the case against Lazio, as was the case against Motherwell, to score a great late goal. Admittedly, the goal against Lazio was scored off. His finish against Kilmarnock was great. His finish against Atletico Madrid showed all the skills you need for a wide player who then can break in to play an inside forward or supporting forward role. Also thought Celtic had the chance yesterday to maybe explore using uh, O as a target man. He is very good at holding up the ball, bringing on midfield and the wide players into the box. Um, Also would have disrupted Hibs' way of playing and given them other options to have to defend, and would then allow Celtic some space for the wide players and the midfielders to come through. It's all seemed rather mentally flabby, fatigued, lack of energy, lack of invention from the players, and also from Brendan Rodgers. Fully expect Celtic will hit back fully on Wednesday against St Mirren. And even if the other lot, Rangers, do win today against Hearts, as we've expected, we still will have a 5-point lead, which obviously is very, very handy as we move further into the season. But I do think for the long-term future of Celtic, we do need to give our overseas players a chance to fit into the side, which does mean giving them occasional starts at least and regular spells coming off the bench. I think it's probably time to forget about Johnston, Turnbull, and Forrest. I don't think any of those three have a long-term future at Celtic. Just about finishes things off for today. No great amount of news coming out of Celtic. Only real bit of good news from yesterday was that Alistair Johnston, who went off with a concussion head injury type of assessment protocol, would appear to have fully recovered by the end of the game, having been taken off to be replaced by Ralston. And so would be expecting Johnston, given his character and personality, to be back fully fit and raring to go on Wednesday against St Mirren. So, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Please, if you can, like and subscribe. Do try to boost those subscriber numbers. Feel free to pass on all the details of the channel to other Celtic fans. Try and increase the exposure and reach of these videos and the channel. There will be a quiz question later on this morning in the community section. So, for today, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Chat again tomorrow. Goodbye and hail, hail.